Hello there. This is the CMOS, the Code Maven open source podcast and the video interview series. I'm your host, Gabor Sabo. With me is Tom Hudson, and we are going to talk about the project called gron. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Let's start with introducing you a little bit. Please tell me a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get here?
Okay, so I'm Tom Hudson. I'm a software engineer in the UK. I work for a betting and gaming company. Have done for about 5 years now. Started tinkering with computers when I was a kid. Eventually ended up spending some time as a network engineer and then a software engineer. Written a lot of PHP. More recently, written a bit of Go. Mostly, I like to make tools. Try and make things to make other developers' lives easier, basically. Yeah, not a great deal to say about me, to be honest.
Oh, it's okay. How long have you been writing open source stuff?
Um, I think I really sort of only started to get into it seriously for the last couple of years or so. I mean, I'd released bits of code that I'd written before that, but they weren't very useful. So only really in the last couple of years have I started to think about what other people might need and tried to make tools available for them. I mean, I think sharing code is generally a really good idea, but I think only recently have I thought perhaps my code was useful enough for people to actually bother using.
Have you had experience with is contributing to other projects?
Yeah, a few. So I have been a maintainer of the PHP client for the Etherpad Lite project for a while now. It's not a very active project, but it's used by quite a few people.
Sorry again, which project was it? PHP?
Etherpad Lite, a PHP client for the API.
What?
So Etherpad Lite is a collaborative text editor. I think nowadays it's just called Etherpad. It's written in Node.js. It's worth looking up, actually. It's good fun to use. It's a great project. Other than that, I made some small contributions here and there. I made a fix to the window manager that I use, one called Get Out of My Way Window Manager, written by a guy called Sean Pringle. It's a really great lightweight tiling window manager, or rather, it's a floating window manager with great support for tiling. Just small bits here and there. Usually just when I find something that's broken and I need it to work, I'll try and fix it.
Yeah, that reminds me. There's this the broken window theory. So you fix your broken window manager. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this window manager is not in PHP, is it? So it's
Oh
something.
no, so the window manager's in C. I don't know C, but usually I just my only real skill is just figuring things out. Just figure out the things I need to achieve what I want, basically. So despite not knowing C, a lot of help from Google. Couple of tools that let me get a debug build and figure out where the seg fault was happening. I think I wrote a blog post about it a while ago, entitled "Fixing a Seg Fault in GOOM WWM." So it's on tomnomnom.com. And again, I don't know C, so it's probably laughable to anyone who does, but it's mostly an adventure in finding a problem and fixing it for me.
And was it accepted in the project?
Yeah. So I got my pull request merged, and I haven't had a problem with it since. So it's a really, really stable project otherwise.
That's great. I mean, that's a little bit here, a little bit there, and that's how it moves forward, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get to this project gron.
Okay.
What is it? Why did you build it?
So professionally, I deal with quite a few HTTP APIs that return JSON, and some of them are quite badly documented, but have very, very large responses. So sometimes you know what you're looking for in the response, and you can sort of grep for it in some JSON, and you find that it's 4, 5, 6 levels deep. So you don't get any context to go with that value, and it can be really difficult to reason about the structure of that JSON. So originally, about I think it's 3, 4 years ago, I wrote gron in PHP, and the idea was to take a JSON structure and output it as a series of individual assignments, but as valid JavaScript. So you would end up with something like JSON dot, I don't know, city dot name equals leads, for example. And that means that if you are grepping for that value leads, you can see the whole path all the way through, and you just get that context that allows you to see, what code do I actually need to write to access this value? What things do I need to traverse over? So mostly wrote it because I needed it, but it didn't really gain any traction initially. I think mostly because I'd written it in PHP, and the main feedback I had from people was, well, I'm writing Node.js or something like that, or even I'm writing C# or Perl. I don't have PHP installed, so I can't use this thing. It wasn't of use to that many people.
Okay. And then I noticed that recently you switched it to, recently, I don't know when actually, you switched it to Go, and you rewritten the whole thing.
Yeah, so I did that earlier this year. I've been writing Go on and off for maybe 2.5 years now. And if I'm honest, the main reason I rewrote in Go was that I was trying to learn more Go, and something where I'd already solved sort of some of the main problems, and I could just do like a straight port to Go seemed like a good project to work on. But then I realized that this means that other people can use this more easily. So Go produces statically linked binaries by default, which means I can build for different operating systems and just upload a binary to GitHub. People can just download it and run it. It just works. So I kind of took it from there, started adding some more features, made it a bit more robust, a bit more user-friendly. And initially, it was all just about turning the JSON into these discrete assignments, which at some point became a verb, to gron. So the JSON gets gronned,
Okay.
is the official way of putting it now. I then decided that for the tool to be sort of really powerful, maybe a little bit more than just exploration, it'd be really great if you could go in the other direction, which has become ungroning. Or nogging, some people would have it, but there was a bit of debate about that early on. But that means that you can alter the structure of the data in its in the intermediate state when it's a list of assignments with things like grep and sed and awk, if you like, and then turn the result back into JSON again. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you should really be relying on in scripts, but when you just need like a quick fix for something, hacking on the command line, it turns out to be actually pretty powerful.
Interesting. I've tried the gron part. I haven't tried the opposite way yet. And I like that you basically take a JSON structure, which my problem is that in many cases the JSON structure comes in as a one line basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Not even. I mean, you can print out JSON normally. Is in a readable format. Even then, it's hard to grep for something because you get the line, but you don't get the context. But usually you just get one line, and then you get the whole thing, and it's unusable. For that purpose, for reading. So what I really liked is that you take that format and show the whole tree, all the levels that go to the point that I was looking for. The fact that it's actually executable JavaScript, I don't know. Where do you feel it's a value? I haven't.
Largely, it's about predictability. So, I mean, when I first wrote the tool, I was trying to think what format could I use to output this data to make it understandable? And I thought I could just write it as though it was file paths, so like with slashes. And then I thought, well, maybe the obvious thing to do is to write it in JavaScript. So, I mean, JSON's a subset of JavaScript. So I thought maybe having my own subset as well would make sense, because then, in theory at least, anyone who knows JSON would immediately understand the format and what different things mean. So, like what the square braces mean, for example. Someone had already come up with that format for me. I just needed to make it work. The fact that it is executable JavaScript is almost more of a curiosity in some ways, but it means that I could get away with not defining the grammar properly initially. I just sort of said, the grammar is anything that's valid JavaScript, which was maybe a bit too vague. I have now started to define the grammar properly, particularly when I've been dealing with some bugs and things on the ungrunning phase, which is fun. It's a real experience for me learning the EBNF. I think it's extended Bacchus-Naur form. I think I'm self-educated, so I didn't do computer science or compiler theory or anything. So it's all a lot of intensive Googling to figure it out. Yeah, I think there's an example in the README. You can pipe the output into a .js file and stick a console.log at the end of it, and it will output the object. And then before the ungrunning mode existed, I suppose that was kind of useful, because you could do the things where you would grep -v and remove certain statements, or you said to change the paths in things. And then you could pipe it into a JavaScript file to get it back into JSON. But it was always a bit flaky, because you need every step of the way. So your top level statement has to sort of say, well, this equals an empty object. And then only then can you refer to properties of that object. Whereas when gron does its ungron process, it can imply all of that stuff from a single statement. You don't need those preceding statements to say how things are set up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I was thinking about the slash thing, that separating it with slashes like a file path, right? And yeah, that is the obvious solution that came to my mind now, but it's obviously also broken, because slash can be a value, and then you have to escape it, and then so it's
that means I have to document it up front. What does the slash mean? Coming up with my own syntax to represent arrays or objects and things like that just seems, the fact that I even thought of it seems silly in hindsight, because there's already something that works really well for that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Do you have any plans for gron?
So there's a couple of things I think need some attention. The error handling is not very good at the moment. So, for example, at the moment you'll get fairly cryptic errors, things like just couldn't parse the input statements, which is pretty useless, particularly if you're putting half a megabyte of input into it. You got somewhere in here is an error.
Yeah. No.
It just doesn't work. Sorry. So I've been looking at package errors, which is a Go package written by Dave Cheney, I think it is, which can help you provide a bit more context about the cause of errors by sort of wrapping them as they go up the call stack. But really, I think my Lexa that does the ungrunning needs some attention in terms of actually giving the user some context in terms of, what character was it that caused the Lexa to choke, or what exactly it was that was unexpected, so that people can figure out what their problem is a bit more easily. So that needs some work. There are a few bits of the code I think just need refactoring where, like I've set things globally because it was easy, and really it makes it a bit difficult to test because I've got to change global state on when under test to make things work. I'd like to change how the adding colors to the gron output works. It's kind of added in line as the statements are built up at the moment. But then I need to do a sort to make sure things are in the right order, and a natural or human sort as well, not a sort of standard just less than, greater than. But in order to do that, I have to strip the colors back out of the statements again, which is a bit of a pain. It's a bit inefficient. I mean, performance has never really been a primary goal of the tool, but if it's unbearably slow, then people aren't going to use it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Unix philosophy of just do one thing and do it well. There's a bit of debate about what constitutes one thing. So should groning and ungroning be separate tools? I don't think so. I consider them. I think that's close enough to one thing that it's okay. But I'm not too keen on adding many more features to it. I mean, the whole idea was that the tool let you use things you already know, like grep and sed and awk, to get things done. So one of the common questions I get is, well, why shouldn't I just use JQ? So JQ is a tool for manipulating JSON, and it's an amazing tool. It's really, really powerful. Does a lot more things than gron, but it's only really useful if you already understand the structure of the JSON itself. So if you know the path to the key that you want, there's not much in the way of discovery there. And it'll do pretty printing and things like that. But again, if you've got half a meg of JSON and you grep for something and it's 8 levels deep, you're doing a lot of scrolling to figure out where that actually is. So really, I see it as sort of as a complement to JQ, which, yeah, I think they can work together. I think probably not like in a script or something like that, but certainly I find myself using gron to figure out what the structure of the JSON is, and then I'll probably use something like JQ to do the actual transformations, unless I'm feeling lazy. As you said.
Okay, that's great. I think we are getting quite close to the time. We are almost 20 minutes already.
Oh wow! Okay.
Talking about it while we were thinking about that we will only have 10 minutes or so. So it's interesting.
Right.
It's definitely interesting hearing about it. Do you have anything, any other thing that we haven't talked about that you would like to call? I don't know. Tell people how to maybe how to contribute or how to get.
Contributions are always welcome. I mean, I actually get quite excited when someone files an issue because it means that I've got something to do. I was a little bit upset that I kind of finished, so to speak. I didn't have anything left to do on it. Just raising issues is the simplest way to contribute. People who've got pull requests or suggestions for enhancements and things like that, I'll always consider them all. There's a small contributing doc in the root of the repository, the gist of which is just basically run the tests, use Go format, run the linters, and then issue a pull request, and I'll have a look at it. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it. Thank you for coming on the show, and I hope many people will start using gron, many more people, and you have more ideas to help others.
All right, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sorry for talking too much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.